Yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sharirasya cha vaidyakena yopakarottam pravaram muninam patanjalim pranjalimanatosmi लये संबोधयेत् चित्तं विक्षिप्तं क्षमयेत् पुनः सकाशायं विजानीयात् समप्राप्तं न चालयेत्. Om. So just to recap what we have been studying so far. Of course, the question is, why do we recap all the time? Yoga study, in fact, a study of any Shastra is like climbing up a mountain. So there is the starting point, then we start climbing, and then we must have our eye on the top of the mountain where we have the temple and the sanctum sanctorum, which we have to go and have the darshana. So the darshana we have to have in Yoga Shastra is a darshana of the drashta, of the seer. So this is not an easy project. While it may all look very logical, very well structured, but still when we actually try to put it into practice, that is when we discover and we realize that we need a constant reinforcement. So when we are climbing up this mountain, periodically we should stop, sit on a rock, or if any Punyatma has built a small canopy, you sit under that canopy. And then you must actually absorb the landscape around you and look down and see how much we have climbed, and look up and see, and again reinforce the direction, the purpose, and the goal. So having said that, the purpose of yoga abhyasa is, in one sentence, is to become free from klishta and aklishta chittavrittis. So that's the fundamental reason. So this is chittavritti nirodha will make sure that we are not affected by either klishta vritti or aklishta vritti. So why should we have chittavritti nirodha? Why should we overcome the klishta and aklishta chittavritti? Because they are the factors that are hiding my true nature, which is drashtu swarupa. And drashtu swarupa is what we have to see. And it's only when we see the drashtu swarupa, it makes the practitioner, the yogi, by means of Yoga Shastra study and by means of Yoga Abhyasa, the practitioner becomes a spiritual hero. So it is to achieve this viratva, viryam, this spiritual heroism, which is to be present every moment, and then to be able to have control on our chittavrittis, is the whole purpose. And now Patanjali Maharshi, having established in the sutras so far that this is the goal is to control the chittavritti. Klishta and aklishta vrittis have to be handled properly, and you become a spiritual hero. The teacher is not asking, you study this because I am teaching this. Patanjali Maharshi is not saying, oh, I am writing something very profound, you ought to know this. He doesn't say that. He says it is because you want to be a powerful person. It is for that sake I am actually expounding on this. And now he has to say, how do we get there? Somebody has to give a map. And the map is, first of all, he introduces the two complementary pursuits, abhyasa and vairagya. Complementary pursuits. So we already saw in detail that abhyasa is to make a sustained effort for chittavritti nirodha. Constant, sustained effort. In fact, it is very curious that once you take up the abhyasa, and you determine to do sustained effort, more and more obstacles come. It looks as though that when we are in the path of this chitta vritti nirodha, more and more challenges for the chitta vritti to be disturbed come. Every single problem seems to get magnified because we are paying attention to it. And therefore, the mind has to be protected from this overreaction also to many issues and many problems. And therefore, Vairagya is a complementary practice. Otherwise, mere Abhyasa is only going to overwhelm us with all the Klishta Vrittis and Ashklishta Vrittis we see. And as I had mentioned in the last class, mind is like a river. Chitta Nadi Nama Vahati Papaya Kalyanaya Cha. So the first resolve is I will reserve, I will invest all my energies to control my mind. First Sankalpa, we talked about Sankalpa. The Sankalpa is I am going to control the Chitta Vritti. The reason I have to control my Chitta Vritti is because the natural state of my mind is extrovertedness. The natural state of my mind is fickleness. And therefore, first resolve is to talk about, and which Patanjali Maharshi also recommends later on as Antaranga and Bahiranga Sadhana. Antaranga Sadhana is what happens within our own mind, intellect, and also Deha, of course, in this. And Bahiranga Sadhana is how do we apply this in our transactions with the outside. We are going to see that when the sage introduces us the Ashtanga Yoga, which we have studied, but we will study a little more in depth practically when we get there. Yamaniyama asana pranayama pratyahara dhyana dharana samadhi ashtau angani. We are going to see that. And the 14th sutra also establishes, affirms that this does not happen in a short time. It takes a long, continuous practice, and it has to get firmly grounded. So 3 necessary conditions are required for this. Number 1 is it must be observed for a long time. And the second important thing is it must be done without any interruption. And thirdly, it must be done with full enthusiasm and zeal. At no point of time a yogi should lose the enthusiasm and the zest for life. Critical condition. Hand in hand with this, one must also practice Vairagya or disposition or dispassion, and that is the sutra we have to study now. So Vairagya can be classified into 2 kinds. One is the absolute Vairagya, known as Para Vairagya, and the other is relative Vairagya, called the Apara Vairagya. So the Vedanta uses these words in a very precise manner. Apara means anything that has relation to the outside world. In other words, anything that can be objectified, whether it is concretely or whether it is in a subtle manner, whatever can be objectified is external to us. And the practice of dispassion to all this external is called the Apara Vairagya. And the Para Vairagya is completely subjective in nature. So objective Vairagya, subjective Vairagya. Objective Vairagya, Apara Vairagya, is discussed in Sutra number 15, where dispassion towards the worldly. Passion towards engagement with the world should be there. Passion towards serving the world should be there. But the dispassion towards the worldly must be there. So we have to understand that very nuanced understanding. How can we be continuously engaged with the world, dynamically engaged with the world, but at the same time disengaged also? So this is our challenge. So apara vairagya is a mastery over our cravings. So what is the present condition? Cravings have mastered us, isn't it? We have not mastered the cravings. There is the beautiful Subhashita by Bhartrhari in the Vairagya Shataka where he says, I did not enjoy all the enjoyments. Bhogana bhukta, vayameva bhukta. I wanted to enjoy that excellent punugu. But then what happened was, the punugu, when it gets into me, started enjoying me if I ate too many of them. So do we know when to say stop? When we know when to say stop for all the worldly enjoyments are under our control, otherwise we are in the control of the worldly. Bhogana bhukta, vayameva bhukta. Then what about our thoughts, our contemplations? Are we not consumed by our thoughts completely all the time? Regret about the past, or pride about what we have done in the past, and the anxiety about the future, fear about the future, concern about the future, or complacency about the future. All of these things are what is occupying our thought constantly. And that is the tapas we are doing. Atmajnana tapas, how much do we invest? Chittavritti nirodha tapas, how much do we invest? As long as the tapas is about worldly objects, we get burnt out. Tapas also means heat. Bhartrhari says, tapona taptam, vayameva taptaha. We are actually burned down. So then we say that I am spending my time productively. Are we truly spending our time productively? We are productive for the worldly. We are producing things for somebody else all the time. What is the productivity towards our own chittavritti nirodha? It seems to have the least priority, isn't it? You have the pressures of work. That is outside. That becomes top priority. You have the pressures of family. That becomes top priority. We are not sitting here under judgment whether you should do or you should not do. We are only evaluating and saying, time is slipping away. Time is eating us up in our perception of priorities. Having not provided space and priority for chittavritti nirodha, other than that, we are providing priority for everything else. There is no time for dhyana. There is no time for thinking about the chittavritti nirodha. So much crowded. Kalo nayato vayameva yataha. Time did not pass. We passed through time. What a condition. 40, 50, 60, 70 years we have just passed through time with nothing tangible to hold on to. If we contemplate, at no point of time in our existence did we ever have control on the chittavritti. And therefore, what has happened to us? The craving for the worldly has never stopped. We never digested what we consumed. Trishna najirna vayameva jirnaha. So why this rather dark emphasis on this? It is just to warn ourselves, even now it is not late. Let us please set apart 5 minutes, 10 minutes of our time every single day to see how we can bring some semblance of chittavritti nirodha, and this is the thrust by saying practice vairagya. Practicing vairagya is to accommodate our thinking, our chitta, for chittavritti nirodha drashtaswarupe avasthanam. So having done this, we have to ask ourselves, should we reject the worldly objects or worldly enjoyment? Because as soon as we say vairagya, and then you become dispassionate about the worldly objects and our dear and near ones, and enjoyment, nobody will do. Let's be very clear about it. Even if Patanjali says, even if Vyasa says, even if Bhagavan Narayana comes in front of us and tells us this, we will not accept. So what is the other strategy? Now here we have to draw inspiration from the Ishavasya Upanishad. Ishavasya Upanishad says, Tena tyaktena bhunjithaha. Tena tyaktena bhunjithaha. Enjoy what has been accorded to us by Ishvara. Tena, by God, tyaktena, given to us, bhunjithaha. Let us absolutely enjoy. In other words, whatever we have acquired of the worldly, through dharma, do enjoy. But then, Upanishad also introduces the concept of accepting all the enjoyments of the world as Ishvara's prasada. That is the key. When we accept it as Ishvara's grace, then it becomes Tena Tyaktena, and that prasada which has been given to us, when accepted and enjoyed, dispassion automatically comes. How dispassion automatically comes? When you go to the temple, and in the temple they give you the most delicious pongal. Very rarely, unless the person is, a child or something, all the mature adults who go there, when they give the prasada, they do not ask more, isn't it? If it is one spoonful, you take that one spoonful and walk away. Of course, you thoroughly enjoy the most delicious pongal. But you don't go back and say, can I have more? This is the spirit of dispassion, where anything that has come in our way, in the process of our contribution of dharma, and at any given point of time, whatever we have received, we should say, enough. Tomorrow morning you go back and earn more. See the interesting point here. Today at 6 o'clock in the evening, what I have is adequate. This is what Ishvara has given me, and this prasada is enough. Tomorrow morning we again go back and engage ourselves with the world. And the world will give more prasada. And tomorrow's prasada you accept, and at the end of the day you say, I have got everything. This is how a constant prasada, enjoyment of the worldly, can be done. And this is true vairagya, apara vairagya. So this, for the sake of training us, for this constant practice of vairagya, our tradition has established the ashrama dharma and the varna dharma. Of that, ashrama dharma is now most relevant. In ashrama dharma, what is happening? The husband and wife, both of them, determined to get married. Once they get married, the project of the husband was the project of the wife. Until about our previous generation, it was the wife who unquestioningly and without any anger or without any disenfranchisement was supporting her husband. That was that day. But what about today? Today it is husband and wife, two careers, there is personal goal, there is personal aspirations. So a little bit of worldly engagement is there for the husband, worldly engagement is there for the wife. How do we reconcile? Now that reconciliation is again, at the end of the day, when both the husband and wife practice this apara vairagya, then at the time of the engagement with the world, they are actually in different roles, as an employee, as whatever roles they are playing, as a housewife. But when the end of the day comes, their careers, their interests, their goal of chittavritti nirodha merge together. When does it happen? When both the spouses have chittavritti nirodha as their goal. Are we trained for that? Is the next question. Yes, we are trained for that on the day of the wedding when we did the Saptapadi. Unfortunately, we were not taught, that is all. That was the time when the parents or the guru or the acharya or the priest had to take the time to impress upon these newlyweds about Saptapadi, every landmark of your domestic and economic life. Every landmark. A template has to be provided and say, take time and determine. Say, for example, 7 steps are there, Saptapadi. First step they take, Ekameshe Vishnustvanvetu. Okay, today you and I have become one by this marriage. So now all the worldly enjoyments are permitted, because under dharma you can enjoy kama also. This kama has given me a certain amount of ananda. But the Guru has told that this ananda is multiplied several fold if you have control on your mind. So a little bit of contemplation. Every time a husband and wife enjoy each other's company, in retrospect, will also say, let this lead me to chittavritti nirodha. So you go on taking each step, dve urje, You buy a house. When you buy a house, why do we do Griha Pravesha? In the Griha Pravesha, again, in this home, I am going to make it like a temple. In this temple, we have mantras in the Griha Pravesha mantras. Na ashlilam kirtayet. Na ashlilam kirtayet. Just as in a temple we don't use bad words, abusive words, vulgar sentences, in the house they resolve not to do it. When the husband and wife resolve not to use evil words, bad words, swear words, vulgar words, that is tapas, that is abhyasa, that is chitta vritti nirodha. You can see how it is inbuilt in that. When the girl becomes pregnant in the Simantonnayana, what do? You tell the mother, make your child Vidyashuram, Tapashuram, Danashuram, Yashasvinam. Make your child Vidyashura. What is Vidya? It is again Paravidya, Aparavidya. So you can see in our tradition, Chitta Vritti Nirodha drives all activities. And Chitta Vritti Nirodha is the culmination of all activities. And this is possible only when there is a little bit of detachment from what we have seen, what we have heard. And this beautifully Patanjali Maharshi calls it as Vashikara Samjna. Samjna means evidence. Vashikara means mastery. There is a mastery, evidence of the mastery of the worldly enjoyment by the yogi, and not the worldly enjoyment mastering the yogi. So by this mastery over the worldly, we again please loop back to Ishavasya Upanishad, which said that Tena Tyaktena Bhunjithaha, enjoy what is given to you by Ishvara. How do we know there is Vashikara Samjna, that is evidence of mastery of the mind? It is when enjoyment is on our terms. It is on our terms. We are not slaves of the objects. When we are not slaves of the objects, when we are not slaves of the enjoyment, and we accept all the enjoyment as Ishvara's grace, one has attained apara vairagya. This is with relation to outside world. Why is so much emphasis on the outside world? Because a very large part of our wakeful life, we are with the outside world. Huge chunk of our energy is engagement with the outside world. And now Patanjali Maharshi turns to Para Vairagya, the highest Vairagya in the next sutra, Tat Param Purusha Khatehe Guna Vaisnyam. Tat means that. Param means the supreme, the highly excellent, the most excellent. Purusha Khyate. Khyati means knowledge. Knowledge of Purusha. In other words, the highest knowledge is the knowledge of the self. The knowledge of the Drashta, the seer. The knowledge of the Purusha. Now the next question is, how do we know that we have mastered this knowledge? The sage answers, Guna Vaitrishnam. Vaitrishnya means it is detachment and non-binding. When the gunas become non-binding, all our relationship with sattva, rajas, tamo gunas become non-binding. And we choose one of these gunas on our terms. Then, see, that is why we practice upavasa. That is why we practice Jagarana. So what is the purpose? It means that we control some of those gunas. So what is Apara Vairagya? Apara Vairagya consists of number one, recognition that there is a higher knowledge. It's not difficult to recognize knowledge about objects because objects are very evident before our senses. It is the Purusha that is not obviously in front of us, and therefore number one is recognition of that the highest knowledge is that of Purusha. So the knowledge of the Purusha, what does it signify? It should manifest in the mind. In the Chitta, it should manifest. Now you please think, anything that manifests in the Chitta, it can be classified either as Sattva, Rajas or Tamas, isn't it? Anything that manifests. Please practice, please try this. Any idea you get, pause for a moment and say, what is its guna? Either it will be Sattva guna, Raja guna or Tamo guna, isn't it? It cannot be anything other than that. So here, Purusha Khyati, that is the knowledge of the Purusha, when the knowledge of the Purusha is completely enveloping the Chitta, then the Chitta is free from all the gunas. Do you have a similar experience? Please think about it. When you are in a heightened state of bhakti, when you are sitting in worship, and you are in a heightened state of bhakti, in that heightened state of bhakti, what is there in your Chitta? In your Chitta, the concept of the Devata whom you are worshipping, other than that, there is nothing. And it is a purified Sattva guna still. But when the Bhava Samadhi takes place, we will talk about Bhava Samadhi later on. When the Bhava Samadhi takes place, that objectification also disappears. It is possible to get that. If proper Paravairagya and Aparavairagya is practiced, Bhava Samadhi is possible. And then the Triguna cease in Paravairagya, in the Chitta Vritti. So the indifference towards the Chitta Vritti and the Trigunas is caused by Purusha Khyati, by knowledge of the Purusha. So the existence of Purusha can be found only in moments of your dhyana disconnected with the objects. So you practiced Aparavairagya. So when you dispassionately removed Aparavairagya, what do you do with your mind? And that mind has got to be filled. So the filling of that mind is Paravairagya, where tamas is completely gone, it drops its effect on us. Then that dropped tamas is followed by rajas, and then sattva also follows and disappears. There is a beautiful story to illustrate this, because these concepts need to be seen with the help of a story. It seems there was a very rich man, and he was passing through a forest. In this forest, there were 3 robbers. And these 3 robbers were well known that they are actually in that vicinity. And people used to hurry through the forest and hoping against hope that they will not be accosted. Unfortunately for our hero, very rich, he was well decked with jewelry, money, cash, everything. And he was hurrying through this forest, and he was surrounded by these 3 robbers. and he was completely robbed of everything he had on his body. Now there is a problem for the robbers. This fellow has seen the three robbers. And if he reports to the police, he can describe how they look, where he was attacked, and then it will be just a matter of time when the police actually arrest all the three. So the three robbers start debating, what shall we do? So the first robber says, we cannot leave him alive here because he has seen us. If we let him go, we will be caught. Takes out its sword to behead him. Now the second robber will tell, my dear friend, we are robbers, we are not murderers. See, let's clarify our profession properly. So we are not going to murder him, we only want to rob him. But I am also sharing your concern that he can be dangerous to us. So what shall we do? This is dense in the middle of the forest. Almost it is becoming evening. And then let us tie him to this tree. Tie him up good so that his blood is not on our hands. Night will befall. All the predating carnivorous animals will come and some animal will eat. So our purpose is served and we don't kill him. And we got our money, let us get out. So they tie up this robber very well and then they leave him. After some time, the third robber comes in and then he says, I could not bear to just walk away, leaving you here. Whether we kill you directly or tie you so that you cannot defend yourself against somebody who is going to kill you, still we become indirectly murderers. So I cannot bear to see this. So what I am going to do is, I am going to untie you and then lead you to the road to your home. Because you cannot by yourself go out of this forest without my being your guide. So the third robber takes him to the edge of the forest, shows him the road to his house and says, you can proceed. And our rich man is so touched by this kindness. He says, you have done so much good for me. What you robbed me is only a very, very small, tiny amount. You come to my house, I will make you rich. Rich enough so you can actually give up your robbing and live comfortably. I'll take care of you. So come home. I'll give you all hospitality. Now the robber said, no, I cannot come there. Because as soon as I enter into the town, the police will actually arrest me. Friend, go to your home. You are now safe. And the robber disappeared into the forest. So the first robber represents tamas. The nature of tamas is destructive. If tamas is allowed to occupy our mind, then it creates thoughts which destroy us. The second robber represents rajas. Rajas is engagement with the world not on our terms, but on the terms of the world. So the metaphor of this rich man being tied is how rajas creates a bandha for samsara. So it comes and ties us down to samsara and makes us engaged in relentless activity. It makes us forget. Because what was happening when the merchant was tied? Only fear was there. Fear of abandonment was there. Where was the scope for him to think about Ishvara, Bhagavan? This is what Rajas does to us. This is what improper engagement with the world does to us. It makes us forget Bhagavan. Even the most devoted devotee of Ishvara, when we introspect and ask ourselves, how much of bhakti is there for Bhagavan? It is a part-time project, isn't it? When we do puja in the morning or in the afternoon or in the evening, or when we chant a stotra, that is when there is bhakti. Where is bhakti continuously flowing through us? The third drawbar represents is Sattva Guna. What Sattva Guna does is, it will only show the way to Bhagavan. It will not walk with us till Bhagavan comes. It shows the way to go to Bhagavan. It shows the way to go to Purusha. And then Sattva Guna also abandons us. That is how the robber does not go to the merchant's home. That's the metaphor. Sattva Guna also drops. So what is Sattva Guna's characteristic? It is characterized by compassion. It is characterized by bhakti, devotion. It is characterized by dharma. Karuna, bhakti and dharma. This is the last step of the staircase. And now after you have climbed to the second floor, you have to walk to your room. The role of the staircase is over. Even Sattva Guna stops short of actual realization. So, therefore, Patanjali Maharshi says, Guna Vaitrishnam. A person who practices Parama Vairagya, Para Vairagya, is not attached even to Sattva. He is only a naturally good person, that is all. There is no effort in his being good. So, what does this process do? Apara Vairagya and Para Vairagya. It will gently and surely turns our chitta towards the highest, Tat Param. So, first of all, we must develop the love for the highest knowledge, for the Parajnana. Highest knowledge is symbolized by Ishvara. And that Ishvara or Brahman is Jnananandamayam Devam Nirmala Sphatikakritim, as one of the stotras talk about Hayagriva. Jnana Ananda Mayam. That Deva, that Purusha is the very, very embodiment of knowledge and joy. And how does it look? Absolutely transparent. Nirmala Sphatikakritim. We have black Shivalinga representing Tamas. We have white marble Shivalinga representing Sattva. We have got even red Shivalingas. There is a place called Banavasi in Karnataka. An ancient Kadamba temple is there, Shiva temple is there, called the Madhukeshwara temple. There, the color of the Shivalinga is red, honey colored. So, Sattva, Rajas, Tamo gunas also are there in the various murtis. But the purity, which is free from all these gunas, is the Spatika. That's why we worship crystal linga. Whenever we do Abhisheka, crystal linga is considered as Adharam Sarva Vidyanam. Not having Sattva, Rajas, Tamo gunas as the driving force, He is the support for all knowledge, which is Sattva, Rajas, Tamo Guna.
Can I ask a question there?
Sure.
Because the word used here is in both the 14 and 15, or 15 and 16, he uses Vitrishna and Vaitrishnyam. It's not exactly the absence of the gunas, but the Trishna, the desire created by in both cases.
To be clinging, yeah.
The clinging as well as the thirst for that.
The thirst. Trishna is thirst, the clinging. This is the Trishna that the rich man shows towards the kind robber. He doesn't want to let him go. So that Vaitrishna also should take place. So when the perfection of Sattva takes place, in the path of the yoga, Aparavairagya, what does Aparavairagya do? Aparavairagya places in its proper place Rajastamo Gunas. Rajastamo Guna have places, have its role to play. But it is placed in that role by your mastery of Rajastamo Gunas and not Rajastamo Gunas mastering you. Then what is left? Sattva Guna is left. But the yogi starts getting clinging towards Sattva Guna. So because of that clinging, again he comes back into samsara if he doesn't let go of Sattva Guna also. So this story is illustrating, if the merchant is not letting Sattva Guna go, because of the absence of Rajastamo Gunas or influence of the absence of Rajastamo Gunas, Sattva Guna itself abandons the yogi.
I was connecting back to the third chapter where Krishna says that, there is Sarva Prakriti Jayat Guna, and he comes and says that Avasham Prakriti Vashat. He almost seemed to be pointing towards saying that there's no real freedom as you're operating the world. There's no real freedom, total absence of the gunas, but there's a mastery over them, but there's no real absence or total. So that's what I'm saying. It's not really an absence of the gunas, but it's probably
it is the
mastery of a view of the influence of that.
Sure, it is a neutralization of their power. See, we neutralize the power of Sattva, Rajas, Tamo Gunas by refining Sattva Guna. Refinement of Sattva Guna happens in Aparavairagya. Then Sattva Guna's attachment to Sattva Guna is resolved in Paravairagya. So it is not the absence. In fact, the merchant did not stop even thinking about the robber, obviously, who actually all the three robbers, but then his chitta vritti became controlled. So even in the presence of the gunas, chitta vritti nirodha is our project here. So chitta vritti nirodha is where you can let even the kindly robber go back. The merchant has exercised chitta vritti nirodha. So it's a question of whether you are dominated or whether you have subordinated the guna. Obviously, as long as we are in Prakriti, we cannot get rid of gunas. We can only reduce their impact on the chitta. So that is the vairagya here. Otherwise, why should we say vairagya, that I am renouncing? I am renouncing because they don't renounce me.
But Ashwath Garu, here the third robber made the decision of not going with the Vyapari. He said, I am not going to come. He has renounced all the wealth, right? I mean, if he would have gone with him, he would have got a lot.
No, this is called the Tatastha Lakshana, where all the gunas and our process of life and all the chitta vritti nirodha that we are practicing can only point to the Purusha, that is all. And the last leap we have to take in our chitta. That's the point. Important point here is the last step, that is from the edge of the forest to his house. This merchant has to walk. Then only the question of Chitta Vritti Nirodha can take place. So what we are trying to do by saying dispassion or vairagya, if you look at the etymology of the word vairagya itself, it is we are getting attached to the worldly and the otherworldly. It is we who are getting attached to the worldly and the otherworldly. So let us detach ourselves. When we detach ourselves, what happens? We will discover the way to Purusha. Because from then on, we don't need anybody else other than ourselves. Hari, you have something to say?
I was going to say one more thing. One is that Vairagya itself can be another Chittavritti.
Exactly. Vairagya itself.
Yeah, that itself cannot occupy somebody continuously there. Sometimes people get so caught up in it, ensuring it, that they are consumed by the Vairagya thought itself. So that is also another teacher.
Vairagya, let us say, is the Paramasattva guna, and even that Paramasattva guna also has to be resolved in the Chitta.
So it almost feels like the Vairagya has to be practiced, but at some point it becomes so natural. It is not a brain-occupied activity. It has to happen. So that's why I think you're saying Purusha Khyade. Because unless there's that view of the Purusha, which naturally creates that Vairagya for Vishaya.
The Triguna Khyati, as we said, is knowledge, right? The Triguna Khyati, the knowledge of the Trigunas, is now replaced by Purusha Khyati.
Correct.
So, replacing Triguna Khyati by Purusha Khyati is Paravairagya. Now, the next question is, how can we achieve this last step? We have got to find a practical way, because it's nice to talk about all this theory, but if you ask how do we do this, that's where the rubber hits the road, as they say. For that, we have to develop a highest love for Ishvara. This is my annotation to practice Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Because Yoga Sutras and Yoga Shastra is not, a bhakti text. It is not a text of devotion. It's not a text for practicing devotion, other than it will indicate you have got to worship Ishvara. It's going to tell like that, but it seems to say that you have to take responsibility no matter what. We agree. We have to take responsibility. But we also need to have a strategy. For that, the love for Bhagavan and considering Bhagavan, your Ishtadevata, as Param, what does it do? Now, the third robber has left me at the edge of the forest. And now I have to go home. What do I do and how do I take that path? From the edge of the forest to go to home, what is my route? And that route is when I see that Ishvara is the ultimate object of my contemplation, it inspires me to pray. So I want you to please think this point very carefully. This time we have done prayer. For what purpose we have done prayer? In apara contact, in the contact with the outside world, that we have been praying, take away the difficulties and challenges of the outside world and give me all the benefits. So we really did not do any prayer for Ishvara at all. When we have asked for, take away my problem, take away my illness, give me money, what were we praying? We were praying for money, good health, etc. We never worshipped God. We might have used His name. In fact, that's why Bible says very, very clearly, don't take God's name in vain. We have taken God's name in vain. But when the Sattva Guna Pradhana happens, the everyday prarthana which is tinged with the Trigunas will now be Para Prarthana. This is what we see even in Mukundamala Stotra. Naham vande tava charanayoho dvandva madvandva hetoho. I am not worshipping you for resolving whether there is God and I are different or God and I are same. I am not scared of Naraka. Kumbhipakam gurumapi hare narakam napanetum. I am not asking for all the enjoyments of the heaven. Ramya Rama Mrudutanulata Nandanena Pirantum. Only thing I am asking is Bhave Bhave Hridaya Bhavane Bhavayeyam Bhavantam. In every single thought that I get, in that thought, I want you to be there. That is all. This is Para Prarthana. So when person has reached the Sattva Guna dominance and complete control on Rajastamo Gunas, he goes into Para Prarthana, and this Para Prarthana is beyond all the Trigunas. And then, what does this Prarthana do to us? This Prarthana makes us realize Nitya Anitya Vastu Viveka. It is only when our prayer is totally free from agenda, Viveka Chudamani instruction of discrimination, we will start appreciating. So this question also arises, should we give up our present lifestyle? Because all this requires some effort. I have got my spouse, I have got my job, I have got my children, grandchildren. Should I withdraw from all this? The answer is absolutely not. This Para Vairagya is a purely Manasika Tyaga. It's intellectual. Physically, you serve them. Emotionally, you must support them. But intellectually, it must be established in this Para Vairagya. If you go to Haridwar, in Haridwar, Ganga is extremely rapid. Have any of you gone to Haridwar? Yes. If you go, what is the current in Haridwar in the river? See, because Haridwar upstream there is a bridge. In that bridge, what happens? All surplus water is turned towards Haridwar. And that's why it is extremely rapid. So they forget about taking a dip in the Ganga river in Haridwar because you will be immediately swept away. So what they have done is they have fixed very strong iron chains. So you hold on to that iron chain and then dip into the river and then you come out of the river. Otherwise you will be swept off. Similarly, in our home, we have many responsibilities and we can be swept away by all of them as rapidly as Ganga. And what is that one strong chain? That chain is the true agenda-less worship of Ishvara. Please try this. Don't ask for anything whatsoever when you are praying. And see how you feel. All that you want is, I just want to be in your presence with that spirit. Then what happens? Just like in a very wealthy man's house, the nanny comes and takes care of all the children of this wealthy man as though they are her own children. But where is her mind? Her mind is on her child who is at home. Isn't it? Similarly, we must also be engaged in the world with a full realization that actually our goal is there in the Purushakhyati, in total Chitta Vritti Virodha. So therefore we must enjoy all the pleasures of life. Please note that this is not a philosophy of negation. All enjoyment, wealth, family, physical enjoyment, comforts, everything we will enjoy, but with one focus, that is, my true stability is in Ishvara. That is how Paravairagya can be achieved. If we take the dry intellectual pursuit of Yoga Shastra, it will satisfy the intellect, but it will not satisfy the heart. So please add this Parama Prema Rupa Bhakti. That makes it easier to take this path. A devotee came to Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and then asked the question, Sir, you have been talking about this samsara, about the challenges of family, relationships, all of these things you have been telling me. Is man bad or woman bad? After all, in any domestic relationship, it is husband and wife. Is man bad or is woman bad? Ramakrishna Paramahamsa answered very, very well. It is not man bad or woman bad. There is a Vidya-rupi spouse, there is an Avidya-rupi spouse. That is all. If the spouse is Vidya-rupi, then he takes the family towards knowledge and God. If the spouse is Avidya-rupi, the spouse takes the person to samsara. That is all. So again, look at the teaching of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa in such a simple manner. He says there is no good and bad. It is only where a person is walking towards, that is all. As many times I have said, if you want to go to Cleveland, take 71 North. That is all. What path you take. 71, whether it is north or south, is harmless. It only depends on what direction you take. Why? Because look at the world, the samsara. World, samsara, everything is created by Bhagavan, isn't it? Objects are created by Bhagavan. Panchabhutas are created by Bhagavan. The tanmatras are created by Bhagavan. The manas is created by Ishvara. See, in the Lalita Sahasranama also we have the saying, what does she do? Pancha tanmatra sayaka. What is her arrows? The arrows are Pancha tanmatras, Shabda Sparsha Rupa Rasa Gandha. And Shabda Sparsha Rupa Rasa Gandha arrows, it depends on whether you are in its trajectory or not. That is all. And then Bhagavan can also, through Shabda Sparsha Rupa Rasa Gandha, give us wisdom and knowledge of God, and He can also take away that knowledge based on how we react to that. And that is why the Devi uses only Sumabane Kshukodanda, isn't it? Sumabana. It is all flowery, it is not hurtful. The world is not out there to hurt us. Because who will get hurt when a flower is thrown at us? Beautiful part in Lalita Sahasranama, Sumabane Kshukodanda Panchatan Matra Sayaka. So the world is beautiful. And the world is showing so much of beauty and enjoyment so that we understand the Mahamaya. Bhagavan's creation of the world is called Mahamaya. This Mahamaya, depending on our choice, can either become Vidyamaya or Avidyamaya. So what is Avidyamaya? There is the Panchabhutas, there is the Pancha Indriyas, there is the Rupa Rasas, Shabda Sparsha Rupa Rasa Gandha, the 5 Tanmatras are there. When we get totally involved in this, then we forget Ishvara. What about the Vidyamaya? In Vidyamaya, when we are in the company of noble and good people, Sadhu Sangha, in Sadhu Sangha where Jnana is the agenda, which is energized by Bhakti and Prema, then it is Vidyamaya. And this Vidyamaya, Avidyamaya's proper understanding through Vidya, that is Sadhu Sangha, Jnana, Bhakti, Vairagya, with all these things, what happens? Avidya leads to Vidya. And Ishvara created Avidya, Ajnana and Vidya, Jnana, because it is his sport, it is his Leela. We have to participate in this beautiful game. In the game, there is no winning, there is no losing. The winner and the loser are friends at the end of the game. So here, why does he do Leela? It is because only when there is darkness, we appreciate light. See, in Alaska, in summer, 23 hours and 55 minutes it is light. So what do they do for people to rest? They actually have thick blinds and make the house dark so they can sleep. Otherwise you would never be able to sleep. So we do need tamas, we do need tattva, we do need rajas. Sukha dukkha is created. Dukkha makes us understand the value of sukha. And then knowledge of God and virtue is understood clearly only when we contact evil. So Nistrayigunya is looking at everything, good, bad, ugly, evil, everything as a way to transit, to control, to get the complete control on Sattva, Rajas, Tamo Gunas, influence on us. So what is this Maya? Maya is like a skin on the mango. We have to let the process of Aparavairagya and Paravairagya go through constantly by bhakti in Ishvara without any expectation. Then the mango ripens. When the mango ripens, what happens? Mango cannot ripen without the skin. We cannot eat the mango without ripening. And when it is ripened, we take off the skin. We don't eat it. And that is how a person, when he gets Purushakyati, Mayam Tarantite, says elsewhere, one actually transcends Maya. Proper engagement with the world, Aparavairagya. Contemplation on Purusha is Paravairagya. When both of these mature, then the influence of Maya also disappears, just as you would take off the skin of the mango and enjoy its kernel. So this is my understanding of these two beautiful sutras. So let us summarize. There are two kinds of vairagyas, apara vairagya and para vairagya. Apara vairagya is a proper engagement with worldly objects without clinging, so that klishta vrittis are overcome. Aklishta vrittis are refined to the point that you are ready to experience para vairagya, just as our third robber leaves the merchant in the town. There is Ishvara's Maya and it has a purpose. It is both Vidya Maya and Avidya Maya. Avidya Maya has to be controlled by our engagement of the Indriyas with the Panchabhutas, and then Vidya Maya is leveraging Avidya Maya by practicing Satsanga, Jnana, Bhakti, Vairagya. All this is summarized in Ishavasyopanishad. Avidyaya mrityum tirtva vidyaya amritamashnute. When the Maya of both kinds, Avidya Maya and Vidya Maya, is transcended, the yogi acquires Purusha Khyati. So this is the theoretical basis of Vairagya that Patanjali Maharshi has spoken about. Now he has got to say who are competent, what is the level of the person, and depending on the level of the person, he also has to give practical methods, and that will follow in the following sutras. Thank you.